This is going to be a visually boring video. You may just want to put it in and listen to it if necessary. For the summary, skip to the 8-minute mark. Today, I would like to talk about my sharpness scale. This is a 1 to 5 scale that I use to try to make comparisons to different knives. Please know that this is my experience, my results, my thoughts, my scale. Your experience and results may vary. I'm going to be referring to shaving, which means trying to run the knife along my arm to remove arm hair. And I'm going to be referring to cutting a held hair, which is a regular hair from someone's head. I also will be referring to what the knife feels like, rubbing my finger along the edge laterally, which I refer to as grab. It will grab my finger pads as I touch that. I also will be referring to running my finger along the knife lengthwise this way, like that. It's my experience that people's arm hair, finger pads, hair from the head, it all varies greatly. Everybody has different levels of sweatiness, dryness of skin, different kinds of hair on their arm, different thickness of head hair, and everything like that. So there is a great varied range of an ability for a person to do this or test this. This is just what I have found in my world and with my arm hair. Please do not try to shave your arm hair unless you are very, very, very comfortable doing it. And please be careful if you're ever touching the edge of a knife and you're not used to doing it. I actually have a beginner video on how to touch your knife and how to check it for sharpness. If you're brand new or you're really not used to handling sharp knives, please check out that video. Now, just a brief history. For 20 plus years, my method of sharpening was to use a coarse diamond DMT stone to reprofile an edge and set a bevel, and I would kind of make a micro bevel with the Spyderco Sharp Maker. I found that the Spyderco Sharp Maker for me usually would result in a knife that was generally sharper than what I could get from the factory with a reliable, decent company. This is going to be a scale of 1 to 5. 1 is low, 5 is very sharp, 0 is a non-serrated butter knife. A 5 is what I would consider very sharp. If I have a knife that is a 5 and I go to shave arm hair, it will shave arm hair very, very, very easily. It will not scrape over the arm hair and leave hair behind. This is where I usually was able to get my knives with my Spyderco Sharp Maker. In general, my knives that I carry are going to be a 5. This is better than most factory knives come new out of the box. It is not unheard of for them to come as a 5 in my experience, but if they do, it's somewhat rare, and kudos to that company. It is possible for knives to be sharper than a 5. I'm going to say they're a 5 plus. My experience is with knives that are 5 plus first came when I used the Work Sharp Precision Adjust Sharpener, the basic model. When I used that, I noticed that the edge it produced was noticeably sharper than what I was able to get my knives using my normal Sharp Maker system. And for the first time, I was able to cut a held hair. So 5 plus means the knife will cut a held hair, but it won't cut it consistently, and it will be difficult. Occasionally, I have found knives that are actually sharper than this. So my sharpest knife I've ever handled, I would give the score of a 5 plus plus. This means that this particular knife easily cuts held hair easily and consistently. A knife that is a 5 plus plus is extremely dangerous to shave my arm with, and I probably won't be able to do it because it will cut my skin. As we work our way down from a 5, the knife begins to shave hair less easily and starts to turn into the realm of what I call scraping arm hair. On my scale, 4.0 is when a knife stops scraping arm hair. So the difference between shaving arm hair and scraping arm hair means when a knife is shaving arm hair, it won't very often pass over the hair and leave hair behind. When the knife starts to scrape arm hair, it will pass over some hairs and leave some behind and will start bringing up some dead skin. This is kind of gross, but this is what happens with me when I'm doing it. 4.5 is the middle of the road. So 4.5 is the area when I'm not quite sure if it's more shaving or if it's more scraping. It's kind of a toss up. It's kind of a tie. I would call that a 4.5. By the way, as an aside, it's my experience that cutting paper is difficult to measure things that are very, very, very sharp. When we're comparing paper cutting, it can be pretty inconsistent. So again, 5, easily and cleanly and noticeably shave arm hair very, very well. 4.5 is the threshold between when I can't quite tell if it's shaving or scraping a little bit more. 4.75 is where a decent factory knife would come out of the box. 4.0 is the threshold for scraping, so at a 4.0 the knife is really no longer scraping arm hair. A 3.0 is very dull by my standards, but still might feel sharp compared to the knives most non-knife people are using. So 2.0 is duller than it is sharp. This is the point where most people's knives live most of the time if they're not totally neglected. They still will have some grab on my finger pad this way, and they start to have significantly less danger level with me running my finger along the edge this way. A knife that's a 2.0, you may actually be able to put a little bit of pressure. I'm not going to do it on this knife because it's actually sharp. So I'll flip. This is the spine of the knife. You may be able to actually put a little bit of pressure on the edge this way, running it this way without cutting yourself. Again, don't try this. It's very dangerous if you're not familiar with knives and you don't know what you're doing. But a knife that's a 2.0, you can start to push this way with a slight bit of pressure without anything happening to you. A knife that's a 1.0 is super, super dull. These knives are extremely difficult for people to cut things with. They have to use extreme force to cut things. This knife may not even be able to cut some material. A knife that's a 1.0 has barely any grab to my finger pads laterally this way, and almost no danger with me rubbing my finger this way. It's barely better than a butter knife. 5++ consistently and easily cuts a held hair. Almost too dangerous for me to test on my arm hair, and will just immediately cut a hair it comes in contact with. 5+ barely and inconsistently cuts a held hair, but it can do it. And a knife that's a 5+ is very, very shavy on my arm hair. The 5 is my normal. It's where I usually carry my knives, and it shaves arm hair easily. 4.75, most factory edges. 4.5 is a tie between a shaving and scraping arm hair. 4.0 is the threshold where it stops scraping arm hair. 3.0 is sharper than it is dull, and seems sharp for most non-knife people. 2.0 is quite dull and is where most non-knife people's knives are if they have not been totally neglected. 1.0 is very dull and would require a major reprofiling and sharpening. Thanks for listening, guys. Everybody might have a different system for measuring sharpness. I just want you guys to be able to tell where I'm coming from. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate your time.